Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Robinson again, and we are going to continue our studies. This time we're talking about dividing polynomials by binomials. Step 1, write the usual division form. Step 2, divide the first term of the dividend by the first term of the divisor to obtain the first term of the quotient. Step 3, multiply the whole divisor by the first term of the quotient. Write each term of the product under the like term of the dividend. Step 4. Subtract and bring down the next term of the dividend to obtain a new dividend. Step 5. Divide the first term of the new dividend by the first term of the divisor to obtain the next term of the quotient. And finally, step 6. Repeat steps 3 and 4. Multiplying the whole divisor by the new term of the quotient. Subtract this product from the new dividend till the remainder is 0 or there is a small remainder. So for us, it'll be a remainder of 0. All right, here's our first question. So we are going to put this in the form of regular division, long division. So let's get going here. So I'm going to draw my division symbol. I'm going to take my dividend, which is b plus 3, and I'll put it on the outside. Then I'll take my dividend, which is the first part, and put that on the inside. B squared plus 5b plus 6. Now I'm going to start my division. So I'm going to first see, what does b divide into b squared? B divided by b squared, that gives me b. Because b times b equals b squared. So let me write that down there. But this is a binomial. I have to not only multiply b times b to give me b squared, I also have to multiply this b times this positive 3. b times positive 3 is positive 3b. Now, I'm supposed to subtract. Now, just remember, we had a video about subtracting polynomials. Now, you remember, there's no such thing as subtraction. So we have to change that subtraction sign to addition. And what we're doing is we're not subtracting, but we're adding the additive inverse. Additive inverse means opposite. So we're adding the opposite of b squared, the opposite of positive b squared, which would be negative b squared. And we have to change this to its opposite, because we're adding the opposite of positive 3b, which would be negative 3b. So I'm going to write over here on the side what we have here inside our little division. So we have b squared plus 5b plus 6. Underneath, I have my new problem plus, it's an addition problem, minus b squared, because I changed the b squared to its opposite, is now negative b squared. And I changed the plus 3b to its opposite, negative 3b. So let me write negative 3b. And now I'm going to add them up. So let's add them up. b squared plus negative b squared, they cancel out to 0. So that's gone. Now I have positive 5b plus negative 3b. Well, I cannot add these because they have different signs. I'm supposed to subtract them, so 5 minus 3 will give me 2. And don't forget the b. And choose the sign of the larger digit. 5 is larger than 3, so I'm going to choose positive. And now I have a plus 6, though. I can't forget about that. So let me bring that down, because that was part of the original problem. So when I go back over here, this canceled out. And this gave me over here, the middle gave me positive 2b, and I brought down the positive 6. So now I got to continue my division. So let's continue dividing. So b goes into positive 2 how many times? 2 times. 2 times b would be 2b. So positive 2 times b would give me positive 2b. So let me write that down here. And now, don't forget, I got to multiply not only by the b, but I also have to multiply by the positive 3 because that's part of the binomial. So positive 2 times positive 3 gives me a positive 6. And remember, I am supposed to be subtracting this. And we just recall our rules. There's no such thing as subtraction. It is addition of the opposite of the second number, or additive inverse. So this positive 2b becomes negative 2b. This positive 6 becomes negative 6. So I'll write that over here so we can see it a little bit clearer. So we have positive 2b plus 6. I just write that down here. And now let me bring this up and clear it up a little bit. We have plus, we're adding, 2b, which was positive, now it's negative, so let's make that negative 2b. Negative 2b. And we had plus 6, which turned plus into its opposite, which is negative 6. So this is now negative 6. So remember, we took that second term, which was 2b plus 6, we turned that to its opposite because you cannot add, you have to add the additive inverse. So now we can start adding. So I have a positive 2b plus a negative 2b. Well, that adds up to 0b, so that cancels out. And now I have a positive 6 plus a negative 6, and that adds up to 0. So this adds up to 0. So really, that added up to 0. They canceled each other out. So I have no remainder. So my answer is going to be right here, b plus 2. So that's what my answer is. So when I divide that by b plus 3, I get b plus 2. And that is my answer. So let's check it by pushing this, b plus 2. And here's another way you can check it just to make sure you got it right. If you take b plus 2 and multiply it by b plus 3, you'll get b squared plus 3 plus 5b plus 6. And if you forgot how to multiply polynomials, check out my video on FOIL. So that was a good problem. So I hope you enjoyed it. Here's one for you. Try to divide. Take your time. If you understand it, great. If you don't, just write down your questions and bring them in tomorrow, and I'll be glad to answer them in class. Here's another one. I just want to mention this. When you're dividing, you need to set up your division problem from the highest variable exponent to the lowest. So notice I put the highest variable exponent, which was s to the first power, to the constant. But here I have s and s squared. So I'm going to lead with the 6s squared first, because that has a higher exponent, plus you should always put it in descending order. So now I'm going to take that 5s, put that over here, and leave my negative 6 at the end. Now you should be able to divide. And I'll even give you a head start. 2 goes into 6 how many times? 3 times. Because 3 times 2 is 6. Now, how many times does s go into s squared? Just s times. Because s times s is s squared. So 3s times 2s is 6s squared. But remember, you have to multiply that by the 3. 3s times positive 3. Well, 3 times 3 gives me a positive 9. And don't forget that little s at the end. And let's subtract But remember, no such thing as subtraction. It's adding the additive inverse. So we have to add the opposite of all the stuff in the parentheses. So this 6s becomes a negative. This positive or plus 9s becomes a negative. And so I'll rewrite it on the side here. You have 6s squared plus 5s minus 6. And we're going to add to that. Let's put down the other part. We're adding, and we're adding the opposite is negative 6s squared. 6s squared. And not plus 9s, negative 9s, because we changed the plus to its opposite. And negative 9s. So now, let's take a look at what happens. The 6s squared plus the negative 6s, it cancels itself out. And now we have plus 5s plus a negative 9s. Well, you're not allowed to add positive and negative because the signs are different. So you subtract 9 minus 5 is 4. And don't forget the s. And choose the sign of the 9 because it's a larger digit than the 5. So we have negative 4s. And don't forget to bring down the negative 6. So all this gave you over here was negative 4s minus 6. And let me just adjust that because I want to keep it lined up. And let me not erase all that. Sorry. Let me get a smaller eraser. Let me just adjust that and put that over here. So line it up because we want to keep it in the right column. Negative 4s and minus 6 because we brought down this minus 6. All right, and now you can continue with your division. So see how many times 2 goes into minus 4. Oh, that's a good question. 2 times what is negative 4? 2 times negative 2. Positive 2 times negative 2. That'll give me negative 4. And don't forget the s, because 2 times 2 gives you the 4, and that's negative at that. And the s is tagging along with that 2. And now we have to also multiply this negative 2 times that positive 3. Negative 2 times positive 3, that's negative 6, because different signs when you multiply gives you negative. And now we're supposed to subtract. Well, you're not supposed to subtract because there's no such thing. We have to change that to addition. Adding the opposite. So I'm going to add the opposite of minus 4s and the opposite of negative 6, which is positive 6. So over here, I'll rewrite it. I got negative 4s minus 6, and I'm going to add this positive 4s because it's no longer negative, and I'm going to add positive 6, not negative 6, positive 6, because I added the additive inverse. And if you look up here, that's what it was, but I had to change it to its opposite. So changing it to its opposite, and now I'm going to add. So negative 4 plus negative 4s, that cancels itself out to 0. Negative 6 plus positive 6, that also cancels out, leaving me with no remainder, a 0. So this gives me a 0, and I am now done. My answer looks like it's going to be 3s minus 2. And I'm going to write that right up here, 3s minus 2. And you can check that by foiling 3s minus 2 times 2s plus 3. See if that'll give you 6s squared plus 5s minus 6. So that was a good problem. Just remember to line up those numbers in descending order. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Here's another problem for you. Hopefully you'll get it right. Bring in your questions tomorrow. Here's another question. Maybe you'll have success with it. If you don't, just watch the video again. Write down any questions or comments that you have. I'll be glad to answer them in the morning. Here's a nice question about the length of a rectangle. We want to find the perimeter of the rectangle. So we have the dimensions there. So check it out. I hope you found the lesson enjoyable and easy to deal with. And if you have questions, bring them in tomorrow, and I'll be glad to answer them. So this is Dr. Robinson signing off. I'll see you in class. Bye.